friends. Today I want to explore something with you that is called biodiversity. It's kind of a big word, but if we break it down into parts, I think you're going to discover that it's already something that you know a lot about. Bio means life. Diversity means variety. So, biodiversity means the variety of living things. And we can study the variety of life in many different kinds of places. Scientists call places where plants and animals live habitats. There are lots of different kinds of habitats all over the world. There are lakes and meadows and rivers. There are faraway coral reefs and rainforests and deserts. There is the tundra, and there are mountains. And there are our familiar forests of Vermont and New Hampshire. Some of these will be a lot easier to visit than others. For example, I cannot go visit a coral reef or a desert or a rainforest or even the tundra today. But we do have a lot of other habitats nearby. So come join me today as I visit a meadow and a forest to see what kinds of plants and animals live there. A meadow is the kind of grassland that we have here in Vermont and in New Hampshire. Other places have prairies or savannas. Our grasslands, the meadows, are sometimes called fields or pastures. What are some of the things that you're noticing about our meadows? Our forests might have evergreen trees like pines or hemlocks, spruce or balsam, or they might have what we call deciduous trees, trees that lose their leaves in the winter. These would be things like maple and oak, birch and beech. Often, our forests are a mixture of these two kinds of trees. We call these mixed forests. Instead of a big meadow, I've decided that I'm going to study a grassy part of my own yard and some woods that are just at the edge of my yard. Maybe you have some places just like this near you that you can also be studying. Maybe instead you have a stream or a mountain near your house that you plan to study. All right, so here we are in what I'm going to call a meadow. I mean, it's really just kind of a grassy part of my yard, so you can use that too. And I want to show you what kind of equipment we're going to need. It's really basic. You're going to need something to mark off your study site. And if you have a hula hoop, something like that is kind of fun. It really marks the space for you. Another possibility is a piece of string or rope. You know, so I just took this kind of long piece of rope and tied a knot at the end, and then that makes a rope circle that I could use to mark off my spot. You know, something else you actually could use, I'm just thinking of, you could just take 4 sticks and lay them in a square, and then that'll mark off your study site. So basically, you need something to mark off your study site. Those are some ideas. And then you might have a data sheet that your teacher will share with you. I'm going to show you my favorite data sheet for doing this. So you might have a data sheet, and if you do, a book or a clipboard is kind of handy to put it on. And if you don't have a data sheet, you might still want to have a piece of paper to record your findings. As a scientist, that's a really helpful thing. So you'll need something to write with as well. That should be it for materials. Let's take a look at some things more closely. So here's the data sheet I like to use. You can see up at the top it says biodiversity, and that's what we're studying. I always like to put the date down, so you can add that in here. And maybe you're out with a sister or a brother or mom or dad or an aunt or uncle, someone, you could put all of your names right here. It's really fun to do with someone else. And then you can see up at the top, I've put down the 2 habitats that I'm planning on visiting, field or a meadow, and then my second one's going to be the forest. But we're going to start off in this column because that's the habitat that we're in first. And before we set up our circle and we start collecting data on what we're seeing, let's start off by closing our eyes so that we can start to notice all of the different things besides just what we're seeing in this habitat. So start in your first habitat, find a spot to sit, close your eyes, and notice, what is it that you're feeling? Maybe you're feeling the wind on your skin or blowing through your hair. Notice what you might be smelling. Perhaps you smell the rich scent of the soil beneath you. Maybe you're smelling the sweet scent of a blossom of some kind of flower that's in bloom. What are you hearing? You might hear the buzzing of an insect or the song of a bird. Maybe you hear traffic going by, because sometimes roads are close by meadows. But take a moment to notice the things that you can with your senses other than just your eyes. Once you've settled yourself into this habitat, open your eyes and we will start to collect some data on the living and even some of the non-living things that we see in this habitat. Now that we have our circle set up, let's become a little bit more familiar with our data sheet. Right here it says within the circle. So now that we have our circle or our square to look in, what are the kinds of things in the field, or whatever your first habitat is, that you want to look for? In a field, some of the plants I was thinking about are trees, shrubs, grass, flowers, moss, or other plants. You might find some other things. Some of the animals I thought we might find would be birds, mammals, invertebrates, or other animals. Then I didn't know if we'd find some things that weren't living. So I put in a non-living section. And there I added rocks, rotting logs, fallen leaves, bare ground, water, or other non-living. Then for each of those things, what you'll get a chance to do once you looked inside your circle is mark how many you're finding. For example, in our meadow, how many trees? Are there none? Are there some? Or are there a lot? Shrubs are smaller than trees, but bigger than grass. Again, are there none? Are there some? Or are there a lot? And you'll circle whichever it is. Same with grass, flower, moss, and then you might add some other plants. For animals, birds, mammals, and invertebrates, you might want to write down the names of some that you find because you might be familiar with those. Mammals, some examples for you are things like mice, chipmunks, bears, foxes. I wonder what you'll find in your habitat. Birds, you all have a pretty good idea of what birds are. Invertebrates might be a tricky word. That means an animal that does not have a spine, does not have a backbone. So that would include things like any kind of insect, spiders, worms. That's the kind of stuff that you'd put for invertebrate. And then it's the same categories down here for non-living. Okay, friends, so here is my circle. Oh my gosh, I see someone crawling. Someone just crawled right outside of my circle, but it was in there for a minute. It was an invertebrate and that was a spider. So I'm gonna add that to my list. Let's see what else we're noticing here. I'm definitely seeing a lot of grass. Ooh, well that's a good question. Is it some or is it a lot, right? It's none, it's some, or it's a lot. So that's something for you to figure out. I would say it's more grass than any other kind of plant, so I would probably put a lot down for that. I'm noticing some flowers. Notice these strawberry flowers here and some yellow buttercups. I notice some violets. So maybe you want to write the names of flowers if you know them, or just circle the word for how many. We just want to get an idea. Remember, there weren't any, or there were some, or there were a lot. So I would probably say there were some flowers. Not noticing any trees. How about you? I mean, we're in a meadow after all. Oh my gosh. As I said that, it got me to look more closely. And right down here, I see some little maple leaves. And now I'm seeing more of them. I see some here. Oh, right here might be easier for you to see. Here's a little bit bigger of one. So that's not usually, oh my gosh, here's another one. That's not usually what we think of with trees, but those are some trees, some baby trees that are starting to sprout in here. So we would want to add that to our list as well. I'm not noticing any shrubs. I'm seeing a lot of ferns that are coming up. That's what all these right here are. So I want to make sure that I add that to my paper. I feel like I should be seeing moss in here, but there's not any that's jumping out at me right now. I have black flies flying around me, but they're not exactly, oh yeah, there's one. There was one in my circle. I'm adding black fly to my list. So I have for animals, I have 2 different invertebrates so far. I have a spider and a black fly. What about for non-living? Remember, that would be things like rocks or logs, maybe water. Well, I see some sticks in here. They're not living, so I could put that. Oh, I've got some dead leaves, maybe from last year. I think it's possible there could be a rock. Maybe there's one right outside my circle. But I don't see one inside my circle, and that's part of the challenge, friends. Once you put your boundary down, that's your study site. So you're just doing a sample, because if I tried to collect this data for this whole field, I would be here all day. So we just do a sample site. If you want to do a second sample site after, that's fine too. But go ahead and record the data that you find in your sample plot. Something else I'm noticing, friends, outside of my circle, so you can't see it, and I'm not recording it because it's not inside my circle, but I am noticing some really small bees landing on some of these white flowers, these strawberry flowers, but they're landing on some of the flowers that are outside of my circle. I thought maybe some would fly into here, but they haven't. I'm also noticing a couple different kinds of butterflies, but they haven't entered my circle either. So I think that, whoop, something, wait a minute. Ooh, just underneath this leaf, I think probably taking in some shade is, oh, he's so cute, is a little woolly bear caterpillar. Can you see him right down there? Oh, that was a cool find. What category does that go in? You're right, invertebrate. You know what, I'm gonna, since it was under the shade there, I'm actually gonna place that back. And the other thing I'm noticing is on my hand, my other hand, some ants crawling up it. So I think I would add ants to my list as well. There you go. I wonder if I had picked a slightly different spot in my meadow, if I would have found different things. I might try it again tomorrow. Once you've visited one habitat, check out a second one. So my second habitat, as I mentioned to you earlier, is the forest. And this is just inside the edge of the forest from my yard, from the kind of the field area where we were. You know what? I decided in here to go for the rope because it's kind of hard to get hula hoops over trees, if you know what I mean. Anyways, here is my study site for the forest. And remember, we want to, maybe first what we want to do is pause and close our eyes and give ourselves a moment to use our other senses to notice what we're feeling. It definitely feels a lot cooler in here to me, which feels great. That meadow was getting kind of hot. So what we're feeling, what we're smelling, and what sounds we might be hearing. Once we've settled in with that, and we have our study plot set up, refer back to your data sheet or just to your memory of the things that we talked about. What animals do we find here? What plants do we find here? And what non-living things do we find? So this is pretty cool. We got a big old rock in this one. I love it. So there's a good non-living. Got a bunch of sticks here. We had 1 or 2 out in the meadow, but we have a lot here. Oh my gosh. And we have really a lot of down leaves. Okay, right, because we're supposed to say none, some, or a lot. So I guess I would say some sticks. Only 1 rock there that I see, but it's pretty big. It's taking up a big part of our circle. So what would you call that? Some or a lot? And the leaves is definitely a lot, because check out all these, plus each of these needles is a leaf off of a pine tree. So where I am is a mixed forest that has maple trees and has coniferous trees like pine trees. So a lot of dead leaves here. That's really different. Ooh, here's a very cool thing on this piece of bark that I'm finding. You might find something like that where you are as well. And that's called lichen. That's a combination of algae and fungus. So that would take a longer conversation. But for the time being, if you find something like that, put it in your plant section. Oh, something that people sometimes mix up with lichen is moss. Look at all the moss up on this rock. That's very cool. So we've been talking about some plants, we've been talking about some non-living things. Some of the other plants are some more ferns. These are a lot bigger here. And over here, a different kind of fern. And a different kind right here. So we have more variety of ferns in here. And we have a tree. How fun is that? So we've got a tree right over here. You might be noticing some other kinds of plants that you would want to describe or draw pictures of. You can use words or pictures to describe your thing. I'm not seeing grass, but I'm seeing this broadleaf here. Seeing this little plant. Seeing this one with lots of leaves over here. Seeing this one here with, call it a serrated edge. Has like little sharp teeth, whereas this one's really smooth. Very different plants than in the meadow where I just was. Again, I have a lot of black flies buzzing around my head, so I would have to include them on my list. Black flies as well as other kinds of flies. I don't know if we have anyone else in here. If you happen to go into a forest for your habitat, I would invite you to take some time and look underneath some of the leaf litter. When I get down even just this far, it's much cooler and damper. This top layer is really dry. I think it would be too hot for a lot of animals. Well, I'm finding more non-living things, more rocks down in this soil, and it is much cooler. But I haven't come across an animal yet. So that's my idea for you today, my friends, is to do a biodiversity hike. Visit 2 habitats and make a survey in study spots, little plots that you mark off, to determine what kind of and how many plants you find, animals you find, And go ahead and add in non-living things like the rocks that we did and the sticks and the leaves, because they give us a lot of information about that habitat. Good luck. Have a great time. I'll see you later. Bye, friends. If you have enjoyed this video, please visit our website to learn more about what we do and consider making a donation.